Well,
Hey Joyce, this is our second video in a row.
I like it. It's
Yeah,
good
me
to
too.
pile them on top of each other.
We're on a roll. So I wanted to ask you a question. An adoptive dad wrote to me and he said that he's been hearing about dissociation and embodiment in terms of adoption. And I tried to answer him in sort of a succinct way, but I was all over the place. And I was just curious what you have to say about those terms.
How did you, what are a couple of the points that you made for him?
Yeah, I told him, I said, I talked about a baby being born and losing its mom. And so why would it, like it being overwhelmed by feelings? And so when there's too many feelings for a body to process, or the nervous system overwhelms the body, the mind like puts the feelings someplace else for a while. And it seems like the mind goes elsewhere. So I was saying that that's in my mind, that's what dissociation is about. Like the this place doesn't feel like a safe place for the mind to be. So it thinks about other things. It thinks about the past or the future. And then for dissociation, I mean for embodiment, I said embodiment is the feeling of that you're in the present moment in your body experiencing life. But neither one felt, I felt like I was trying to describe the sky with cup measure.
I think it's hard because we're not neurophysiologists.
Yeah.
So, so I think there's lots of ways to answer those questions. What I worry about is people don't look at this on a spectrum.
Mhm.
I think that people go almost immediately to the most pathological
Mhm.
place. And dissociation is a very serious psychological disorder, no question. But people who dissociate aren't always mentally ill or have that diagnosis. I think that it's important for us to see it on that spectrum and to understand it that way. I think many people dissociate, and I think you did a good job of answering it. I mean, people do leave their body, go to another place. They have more control over their mind sometimes, and how they can make sense, make meaning, have power, have affect, and look at things. So they do a lot of the work in their mind during a complex situation. And one way to leave the room is to dissociate a little bit. I mean, many people dissociate during a bad lecture. During,
Mhm.
there are so many situations. I once went to a baptism that was so amazing. Um, Reverend Gomes from Harvard University, if you ever want to just Google his speeches, his sermons, oh my God, he was wonderful. But he was invited to be the priest who did this baptism, and it turned into one of his sermons, and it was about the psychological possession of human beings. And he talked about how you can this child the baby dropped her rattle during the baptism, and he picked it up and said, "Baby Emily, this rattle belongs to you, but you do not belong to your parents. You belong to yourself." And he launched into this description of the psychological possession of human beings and how through the centuries we've done that. We're doing it today, and how it has hurt so many people. And he talked about how people have the ability to not be captured. The people who don't want to listen to him right now can be looking out the window and thinking about their vacation coming up in Tortola, and they're not paying any attention to him. That is dissociation. That is leaving a situation that's boring or that's not really for you or that you're not into. And you have ways of leaving situations, and the spectrum of how threatening, frightening, how much terror and abuse and trauma is associated with them can be nothing but sitting in a boring lecture and not wanting to be there. So I think we have to be very careful that we don't jump to the extreme meaning of dissociation. Certainly, someone who is being raped or tortured, you know, must dissociate. Their body is being tortured, and so the dissociation is the only thing to take them out of that body into something else. And sometimes they get locked in the dissociation, and this is a whole different situation than sitting in church or sitting in a lecture or a sermon and not wanting to be there and taking yourself out mentally. So I'm not really answering the question very well, but
Yeah, no, you are. This is great.
I think the most important thing is to be careful. There are so many pop psychologists and coaches and people who know things because they think they do. And there are levels of that. There are people who also have a lot of experience, who have a lot of training, who have taken the time to really learn a lot about things, who can talk about this. I think you and I have experience in each of our fields to have this conversation, but I would never say I was an expert.
Mhm.
But the thing I pick out of that I want people to hear is the gradation, the spectrum,
Mhm.
so as not to accuse the other of being mentally ill. Or this is how people got sent to insane asylums, which to them,
Mhm.
you know, we don't have as many these days for the good or bad of many people. But this is how people were pathologized, demonized, and sent to places when in fact they were surviving.
Mhm.
And it's important to look at the levels of what's going on and not to over diagnose or
Mhm.
assume that someone has a label that
Mhm.
really is a word that could be
Mhm.
used, but not the label that goes with that person.
Yeah, I was thinking, I just drove from Cape Cod to Boston, and there's a bridge you have to go over. And I was getting close to Boston, and I realized I didn't remember driving over the bridge. So then I was thinking, was there a way for me to get here where I didn't go over a bridge? And then I thought, oh, there, you can't. You had to have gone over a bridge. And I could not remember. And so that means I was thinking about something as I was driving over the bridge. And I think, as I know all people do this. And I think as an adopted person, as a teenager, I was called an airhead, because if you're not paying attention, like you miss instructions, you don't remember things that other people remember because your brain is trying to process other things that happened in the past. And so I think there's this level, where it's it's on a daily basis of it looks like I'm not really here because I'm not because my Mhm.
It used to bother me when I had my clinic, and you know, you could see there were like 20 something people working there, so we had a lot of clients. They were all foster care, adoption, kinship, guardianship, you know, donor. I mean, we worked with that population, mostly adoption, and so you would see themes, you would see what was going on, and I remember throughout the whole time, but very vividly in the late 80s and 90s, that every single foster child or adopted child that was referred to us was referred by someone and came with a chart with information from the previous professional that worked with them. And every one of them had ADD or ADHD.
Mm.
And I said to myself, how is it possible
Mhm.
that this many people in this cohort can have the same thing?
Mhm.
That really can't be their diagnosis.
Mhm.
That's just not feasible that that many people have that diagnosis.
Mm,
And it really isn't. And if you give the wrong diagnosis, you get the wrong treatment.
mm,
And all of those kids were distracted, just
mm,
like you,
mm,
as you described, as I was as well. And, but the thing is, they were distracted because of trauma.
mm,
Their early trauma, and there is trauma even if you were adopted at 10 days old. There's a complete disconnection from the space that you grew in, your foundation. And so there is trauma to all of that. And the same kinds of issues arise from post traumatic stress that come up in ADD and ADHD. But if you give a post traumatic stress person the medication that you would give someone with ADD, ADHD, it's not going to work.
mhm,
It may give some effects or it may not or whatever, but it's not going to cure the situation.
mhm,
And I think that the problem is to really look carefully and listen carefully.
mhm,
When you did it again, you do this thing where you reflect on yourself. A lot of people don't have time or energy or aren't reflecting on themselves. You went over that bridge. That's the only
mhm,
way, let me tell you, unless you're in a plane, yeah, or unless you take a boat across, which I don't think there are many. You were in your car and you went over a bridge. There are two bridges, and you went over one of them, and you were distracted. You were in another space.
mhm,
You were, your
mhm,
eyes were on the road. You didn't get in an accident or anything, but you
mm-mm,
weren't paying attention to your surroundings and you didn't care about that. You were
mm-mm,
into something else.
mhm,
And there's nothing pathological about that. It's something to be aware of
mhm,
because you don't want to miss your seven. I miss turns all the time when I'm
mhm,
daydreaming or thinking about something else. That can happen.
mhm,
But really, not to mistake that or to rush to a psychiatrist because you're
mhm,
sure you have a diagnosis.
mhm,
You have a situation that it's important for you to pay attention to and learn the strategies to deal with,
mhm,
but you're not mentally ill. And
mm-mm,
I think we have had a tendency to pathologize so many things. And then sometimes in history to use those pathologies for good because they'll get us the attention we need to fix something, but at the risk of being seen as someone who isn't who you are.
mhm.
So I don't know, that's a long answer to
Yeah, no, it made me think of, if a baby is crying, you could sit there and look at the baby and try to figure out what's wrong with the baby, or you could pick it up and hold it. And if you have CPTSD, there's the pick up and hold.
yeah.
And if you have ADHD, there's the figure out like what medicine or treatment would help this person. And I agree with you that everything that you said, um, yeah,
You
as
can pick
usual.
the baby up and figure it out.
Yeah, and figure it out. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's either food, gas, or nap. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not that complicated usually, I think. I'm still that way.
Well, that's the embodiment. That's physically.
Yeah,
That's what. Those are the things that you always need.
you're right. I look at my dog, I look at my dog and, he's so embodied. He's busy being in his body. That's his job.
Yeah.
And it's so neat to watch that. He's not thinking about yesterday. I don't know I don't have his brain, but it's a nicer reminder when you have a dog just to watch it. I think it's possible just to be here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the great thing is he's protecting you in his mind. That's his
Mhm.
job.
Well, I just want to point out that right now he's not protecting anything.
Well, he is. He's protecting you. You're in your house. You're safe. He knows
Yeah.
this is a safe place, and he knows you're doing the things you do. He's listening.
You're right. He would be up in a second if
Yeah,
something happened.
yeah. And you're protecting him. He knows he has a safe space.
Mm,
He knows he's going to eat. He knows he can
mm.
do these things. He can lounge around. What a life dogs
It
have.
took him 3 years to get that comfortable.
Yeah, Yeah,
Yeah, because he'd been in two homes.
yeah,
I could see that.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, Joyce, thank you. It's always so enlightening to talk to you.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
talking to you.
Yeah.
You have such great things that you think about. I love that.
We play a good tennis game.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.
Oh, I didn't do cancel. Okay, I don't know how to stop. Did I do stop? Are we
Yeah,
stopped?
it's unrecord or something.
Okay, good.
It's still recording. We're still recording.
We're still
We're
recording.
not very good at IT.
Okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
Stop.